Hello, and welcome to my cellar once again. Well, technically it's my basement, but Curmudgeon in the basement didn't sound as good as Curmudgeon in the cellar. Now, to me anyway, my IT guy says I need to get a new camera. Well, hey, I got the best camera $25 can buy. It's a Logitech. It was on sale, and it's ambiance. That's what I call this. I have it dark down here on purpose because, hey, I'm in a cellar. So anyway, where do we start tonight? We're going to delve back into alignment again. We seem to haven't picked at every scrap of meat on that carcass yet. And I understand there's been a sighting on the Mandalorian of what's probably a boule of sorts. Apparently it looks like a sandworm mated with a boule, and they had a crate dragon. All I know is that big skeletal head looks like a boule, and it could eat you in your house. Let's see where we're going to start tonight. Kind of a tribute to Len Lakofka. Loved Len Lakofka's work. Back when I would judge at AD&D Open at the various Gen Cons under Bob Blake, I always loved the adventures Len created. I still had copies of them up until about 10 years ago. Rather than roll damage dice, he would just use the average and skip the rolling. Let's talk about, and I agree, Lenny wrote beautiful adventures, and let's look at that, use the average. At a tournament, in a convention, I believe using average numbers is the way to go, because then no party can say, oh man, we had sucky dice. Or, oh man, our dice were hot all day, rolling averages. Then it becomes whether you hit or not. And I don't know. I think it's not a bad idea in tournament play. I really don't. I think that's excellent leveler. Next comment. I'd love to see your game being played someday. Keep up the videos. Well, I'm not sure exactly how Discord works. I'm running a game on Discord on the 14th. I think I have 9 players. It's just one more than I usually play with, which means it'll just be that much more fun. And it means there's going to be a pair of twins in the group because I have 8 pre-gens. So we're going to have twins. I don't know if those can be viewed, as a spectator in a peanut gallery or not. There's not a lot to see anyway. It's more hearing because I'm more about the story and the verbal interplay. I don't do minis and I don't do maps and stuff like that. So I don't know. Check it out. My server on Discord, if you're familiar with Discord, and it's free, there's a bar down the left side that has a lot of little circles on them of various colors and various names in them. Mine's a plain gray circle that says KS, small k, small s, Cascoid server. November 14th. Okay, here we go. Back to alignment. Now, these first 2 words set me off on an entirely different path. Alignment zombie. And I go, okay, that'd be about as neutral evil as I could think of. They're only after themselves and they don't give a damn what happens. But that's not what it was. Thanks for speaking to this. I'm strangely fascinated by alignment. My view, it was necessary at the dawn of RPGs to make role-playing a game mechanic. Many variations now exist, some quite innovative, yet some games eschew it altogether, and that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, hey, that group of ex-cons that I played with, they obviously they only saw one alignment. If you don't play with alignment, that's fine. Again, Alignment was supposed to be an indicator. For instance, if you encountered an elf and you knew that they were chaotic neutral or chaotic good, that told you that you couldn't predict how they're going to react in any given situation. Whereas if you encountered a hobbit who is lawful good, or what we'll say in this case, a lawful good character, or NPC, then you would have an expectation of certain responses or certain reactions to something you did or said. That's what it meant. Now, I've been thinking about this more and about this chart that's been going around all this time. And it seems like what we set out to be guidelines of expected behavior has become something really scary. Chaotic neutral, act for yourself without regard for laws or morals, but don't go out of your way to hurt others. Maybe. True neutral, self-serving, usually with apathy and obedience. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the apathy or the obedience part. True neutral acts for themselves. They don't obey other people necessarily. Lawful neutral really scares the hell out of me. Preserve establishments and regulations with general disregard for morals because rules are the ultimate good. It went from a guideline for expected behavior to, in some cases, fascist or socialist dogma. I don't know if I'd like playing in a campaign where lawful evil oppress others with establishment. Now, neutral evil, hurt people if you feel it's beneficial for your own personal benefit, which in your eyes it usually is. That's pretty right on. But some of these others, my goodness, talking about going to an extreme. Whew. Yeah, I'm trying a new energy drink tonight. Hey, any of you are tied up to an energy company or something, I'm always looking for an energy drink sponsor, or I'll do reviews. This is a new one. Interesting flavor. Doesn't tell you in the name what all it is, but it does seem to be effective. Okay, the Dragonlance lawsuit. I got one reply that says it appears to be quite strong against WotC. Seems they tried to pull the books due to their wokeness, and now it's coming back to bite them. This individual hopes the writers get their damages. That's a very good point. Dragonlance is not woke. Orcs are evil, etc., etc., etc. It's not woke. Well, I think it's time that the people at WotC and Hasbro learn that most other stuff isn't woke either. And I don't know. I think it's interesting from what I know of the suit. They act, Margaret and Tracy, and are good people. I'm proud to list them as my. I won't say that we're bosom buddies, but I consider we're friends. And if they were done wrong, then I hope they collect a big payday because of it. Now, on the other side of that coin, pretty wild how the Dragonlance crew is suing over their own inability to write professionally. Typical of the legal system to allow bad faith actors to steal from everyone. I don't know where this is coming from. My knowing them aside, if they were contracted to write X number of Dragonlance books, Dragonlance is a setting, therefore it has its own built-in rules, codes, morals, etc. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I will say that this is a little harsh. Own inability to write professionally. I believe both of them are capable of writing very professionally. And if WotC had wanted some woke stuff, they should have made that known before they wrote 2/3 of the project. At least that's what it seems like to me. But hey, I don't know where this comes from. I have no interest in reading the Dragonlance. I think I did read one. It had Kenders in it. Kenders. I did read one, and I enjoyed it, but I had no desire to read a whole bunch more. Unlike, say, the Iron Druid Chronicles, which I just ordered the last 2 of the series, and I'm reading a collection of the short stories wrote in between. And that one, I'm compelled to read them all. It's not to say, I know there were wildly popular books, and they were well received by a ton of people. Next comment. I'm also very much of the camp that doesn't see the entertainment value in watching other people play. Yeah, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just don't see it. Kind of like I don't understand why people watch golf on TV. It's pretty boring. But then again, hey, I watch curling. So, we all have our quirks. All right, here we go back to masks again. One of the player characters got their face melted off. Had to get an iron mask to put over that. Okay, there's a very legitimate use of a mask in a campaign. However, unless a whole lot of people are wearing masks, that person is literally marked because everybody knows that guy in a mask. But absolutely, you can't go around with a bare skull looking like something out of a comic book. Let's see, what else? Had a number of interesting comments. Okay, here's where I define, because I think I know where this question is going. Does the elf ear shape help in hearing particular noises or frequencies? No. My ruling would be no. Elves hear those things because they're magic. So if your elf character got his ear chewed off, no, I would not. Well, I would give him a normal handicap to hearing, but not rule out certain things that elves can do that others can't, if there even are those things, because I don't remember a whole lot of that. I don't remember much of that in first edition. So, no, I wouldn't penalize an elf for a damaged ear. I don't believe they're like fennel foxes that can rotate their ears around and zero in on mice running under the snow. Okay, excuse me, I had an itch, late at night itch. Okay, no, I would say no. They can do that crap because they're magic and they're not real. Okay, and here's one last comment on alignments. This person prefers to use the Palladium book alignments. Check them out if you might like them. No, I won't check them out. I'll explain that in a minute. Alternatively, I do enjoy the alignment in Forbidden Lands too. And he says something about a page 108 in the player's handbook, coup de grace. No, I don't care to check them out. I don't bother to read most of the fantasy. I don't even look at the other fantasy role-playing games. Not interested in them. I have one I like. Now, that said, I have done some Mouse Guard, and let's see, there's another one. I got involved in a game of Burning Wheel or something. Briefly, we didn't finish it, and I never did really quite understand what was going on. It's in terms of fantasy. Now, in terms of sci-fi and post-apocalyptic, that's a whole different ballgame. All right, here we go. This is a good philosophical one. Campaign situation. Characters hold the same faith, but have different political values. How do sectarian differences affect characters of the same faith? Do both receive favor support from their deity? For example, cleric PC meets same faith cleric on an unusual mission to destroy temple of the neighboring abbey, going against normal practice of the faith. Clerics argue that they have good reasons to operate against normal tenets of the faith. Further question, does the PC cleric lose favor with the deity if they allow the attack to happen, or vice versa? That's several shovels deep. All right, by same faith, I'm assuming that you have the same deity out of some pantheon or something you made up yourself. Like they all worship Thor or pray to Thor. Or, we'll just use Thor as an example. So the leader of one temple or abbey or enclave feels that Thor told him that they need to go wipe these guys out because they're evil and they're going to wipe them. They'll be wiped out by them if they don't act now. And another temple that worships Thor, their leader doesn't get that message. Hey, have fun, DM, with that one. And to answer the first original question, well, if you belong to a church here on earth as your, real life thing, I'd be willing to bet that there's people in there that are Trumpers and there's people in there that are Bidens, and yet they choose to overlook that because of their common faith. I know that there are people that I have met in years past at the church I used to belong to till it was dissolved, who are not of the same political spectrum as I am. Doesn't matter. We don't talk about it. It's just like, game night. We don't talk about politics at all. Even though we're all mostly on the same page, we still don't do it because it ends up being and this, and then that, and it just spirals out of control. So, go back to the original question. People that worship in the same temple or worship the same deity from different temples can certainly have differences. Otherwise, it's some kind of mind control thing. And then we're getting back into this weird alignment crap where now you've got a socialist or a fascist government formed underneath the umbrella of religion. If that sounds like a campaign, an adventure hook I'd use to go wipe out these bad guys that are trying to take over everybody around there and make them slaves to their dogma. But that's just me. I don't know how I would adjudicate that. For one thing, I've never been in a campaign situation where everybody worshiped the same people. It just seemed like everybody picked their own deity. Now your campaign may be more centralized into clerics, and maybe an all-clerical campaign. All clerics in your group. I've heard of that. There's so many deities or demons or, whichever direction you're going with this out there that in my thinking, in my world, I would find it very unlikely that two people professed or two groups professed to follow the same deity. Most of the clerics I've known, once they got up to a certain level, wanted to found their own religion based on somebody else, but of course that made them the Pope or the Archbishop or whatever. It's funny. There's a lot of context missing. A lot of how I would interpret it relies on the context. As to the group that doesn't stop it, well, there again, how avidly do they profess and follow their faith? Do they believe the other leader that, hey, Thor told us to do this? Well, hey, Thor didn't tell us. Well, hey, that's not your fault. It's an interesting question, though. It's a lot more detailed into a campaign than I've ever gone into the machinations of the religious. Okay. Question. Tasks that take time / slow the game down. PC is picking a lock in your dungeon or scenario. PC fails. PC tries again. PC keeps failing but wants to keep trying. What is the best way to deal with this? Now, they give some of their possible solutions. Some possibles. Random encounter. That's something I've been known to do. Hey, here's something coming down the aisle. How long coming down the corridor? How long are you going to keep playing with this? One and done roll. Try once. Make it or break it. Fail just means that the PC gives up after a set time. Okay. Or introduce some new rules, such as reducing PC's hit point by 1 for every 5 fails. After a couple 3 fails, I would just tell him, well, this seems to be beyond your skills. Move on. Multiple times. No, not without the possibility of whatever's in there or something else wandering by, because it is a time burner. And I think people need to remember a lot of the time that you're really trying to sneaky creepy, not clanking down the halls like some sort of robot making noise. Most adventures and scenarios involve some sort of sneaking and creeping and subtlety. When I'm playing in a regular thing, and the thief has rogue now has a 42% chance overall of finding traps and things. They say, okay, I'm going to search the room. I assume they're going to be very thorough. I'm going to give them the full 42% or whatever. If they fail, I will simply, and there is something there, I'll simply say, you find nothing. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means they didn't find it. Now, if they said they wanted to go over it again, I'd probably double their chance of finding it, but that'd be it. If they still couldn't find it on an 84% chance, they're not going to find it. Period. Let's move on. You're the only one that knows what's there, or if there's something there anyway. So it's not like they're going to cry foul. Yeah, sometimes that can happen. If you've got a thief that keeps trying 4, 5, 6 times, each of those times takes time. It's not something like fiddle, didn't get it. The second, the third, the fourth time would take more time because they're sitting there biting on their tongue, fiddling around with their picks, and their lock picks and their hairpins and whatever. If it persists, then it's time for a wandering monster. I believe that sometimes player characters need to be gently schooled every now and again. By the same token, they walk into a room, and I know that there's something hidden there, and I know the rogue's ability. I might roll the dice. If I roll within their ability range, and they go, okay, I'm searching the walls. Well, when you get over here to this corner, you find, because I already know they found it, I'm not going to make them roll it. But if they don't find it in a couple of rolls, time to move on. You can't stay all night while an inept thief keeps trying to open the lock. Or you can spring a needle or some other form of, a cloud of gas, something like that after the third or fourth failure. Kind of like being locked out on your computer. You miss a password 4 times, come back tomorrow. And you can even use that analogy. It's kind of metagaming, but I oftentimes find that certain times metagaming's fine to explain a concept or something. It's not violating any hard and fast rules in my opinion. All right, let's see what else we're going after. Random encounters is always a good one. It's always a good prod. And if I haven't said it yet. I'm filming this on Friday the 30th. Tomorrow's Halloween. Vote on Tuesday if you haven't already. I voted 2 weeks ago and hand carried my ballot to my county board of elections. And I went and looked, and it's been accepted. I wish to God they'd quit inundating me with the political emails. Junk. I wish they'd quit asking me for money. I've done my bit. I gave to who I wanted to give. I went and I voted. My part is done. Cut it out. Vote. Okay, now this is an interesting, very interesting one, pardon me. How should one approach publishers? Perceived wisdom used to be send manuscript to one publisher at a time, wait for a reply, repeat. I've heard of cases, admittedly not tabletop RPGs, where manuscript was sent to every publisher at once, which worked in the artist-writer's favor. No, a lot of companies, you submit it to them, fine, you take it to them. They don't want to take something that maybe somebody else turned down. Not everyone's like that, but what's my assessment of tabletop role-playing publishing today, and what approach do you recommend? And there's a PS. This guy's gotten into my November 14th game. He was supposed to be on my 24 October game, but we only had a couple people sign up. So I don't know that he's going to be one of the twins because that's drawn by random, but he's that 9th person. And so, yeah, you're in. You knew that. I already told you. I'll tell you what I've said a whole lot of other times to other people. Most of the publishers today are publishing mostly in-house material. Now, I'm not talking about, staff writer sitting in his cramped attic type self, but they want a particular product. Perhaps they see a product somebody did for someone else and they like it, and they'll reach out. Today, a lot of publishers are sticking with known producers. Do your homework, do your research, figure out what it's going to cost to publish it yourself. If it's simply a book, easy peasy, lots of places you can go figure out what printing a 40-page or an 80-page or whatever page book of whatever size you want, and kickstart it. Don't be greedy. Figure out what it's going to cost you to make 500 or 1,000 of them. If you only make a small run on that first one and you fund and you publish and it's good, it will immediately become a collector's item. If you sell, now I don't know how every Kickstart person does it. I know how a couple have done it in the past. They sold, I'll make up some numbers here. They sold, they got 120 was the number they needed to fund. And so they printed 140. So they had 20 back they could either send out to reviewers or sell themselves later on when it became valuable. A good friend of mine, Jim Wampler, has been very successful with his Kickstarters. He started small. He funded with some overage. He delivered on time. He did another one, a slightly larger one. Because he had done that first one well and on time, his second one was more successful. The third built on the second. I'm afraid to say that self-publishing is probably your best bet. Now, having said that, you self-publish something that's well done, creates some buzz, creates some interest, one of those other companies may well come talk to you. Most of the companies are looking for writers to write stuff that fits around their systems. They're not looking for a new system. They have one. Yours would have to be so radically different or in an entirely different genre so that it would not compete with their own, particularly if yours happens to be a better or more interesting. Self-publishing. Talk to a few people that have done Kickstarters. Make sure you have a very good editor. Make sure you have a very good layout person. So that when you do fund that first one, whatever your dollar amount goal is, when you do fund that one, you have it ready to go when it funds. So that all you have to do is lay it out, or you can even have the layout done. If you do stretch goals, that's going to affect your layout because you're probably going to put in more monsters or more art or different art or whatever. Well, figure that out. See what that's going to do to your printing costs. And, this all has to be computed at the very beginning when you set your funding goal. Your funding goal has to print X number of books, pay for the postage if you aren't charging for it, and make you a little bit of a profit. Now, if you get something ridiculous like Exploding Kittens, they made $1 gazillion on a game that sucks. Played a game 4 or 5 times, and there's no reason to play it again. But it sells gangbusters. Who could say? I didn't get into it. When I even heard about it, it was already in the stratosphere, so I didn't bother. I've bought a few games on Kickstarter. If you go Kickstarter, you have to have a good videographer. You're going to have to put together a good video that either extols your game, your product, shows your game or your product. You've got to have one of those to get them interested. Then you can list your participation levels. And I recommend that you never put one of those $1 pledges, because anybody that pledges is free to go on there and rip you to shreds. And if you have enemies out there, count on them to show up and rip you to shreds. I would never open up myself to that kind of shitstorm in the chat section. Who needs it? Don't do it. You don't need those $1. More often than not, the $1 people, not always, I don't know who you are, they're trolls. Now, if you're one of those $1 people that just wants to keep up with it, then I'm not talking about you. But there's enough trolls out there. I've had friends in their Kickstarters have to deal with trolls. And they quit that. Now if you want to be a jerk off, it's going to cost you $5. Well, there's fewer trolls out there with 5 apparently than there is with 1. But anyway, that would just be my suggestion. Now, I'm going to go back to the Boule and the Boule's ill-mated offspring on the Mandalorian. I've had a couple people recently tell me that I really ought to subscribe to Disney Plus. Well, there's a problem right there. I'm not going to pay Disney a dime. But if ever there's a free week to try it out or whatever, I'll stream it. because a couple of my friends in the industry seem to think that something I did or something we did may have had an influence on it. That'd be cool. But a lot of stuff we did has had a lot of influence on a lot of things. So it'd just be one more feather in my cap. Pretty soon I'll have one of those Hollywood war bonnets that's dragging on the ground behind me. That's not what I don't look good in feathers. I don't think. I can't imagine it. Vote. Vote. If you're registered, vote. If you're registered and you don't vote, and I find out about it, expect a verbal chastisement. If you don't really love either one of them, and I can't say that I really love either one of them, go in there, hold your nose, and poke the dot for the one who nauseates you the least. If you're tired of the orange shit givens behavior, go vote for Biden. Don't waste your vote on a third party. That third parties, unfortunately, don't do shit in this country except drain off votes. I would love to see a system where we had 3 or 4 parties, active, strong parties, and now we would actually see legislators making coalitions again, like they used to do in the 50s and the 60s, reaching across the aisle to get something done that matters. If you live in Kentucky, don't ever tell me you voted for Mitch McConnell if you did. In that case, you will lose 10 IQ points in my estimation. Though I suspect there aren't too many Mitch McConnell supporters watching me anyway, so it's probably not a great risk. Vote. We'll talk about that vote next week. Until that time, Dodata Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Tight with tramp under a tree.
High as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.